Then King Rezin of Aram and King Pekah of Israel came up to attack Jerusalem. They besieged Ahaz, but could not conquer him. King Ahaz sent messengers to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria with this message: I am your servant and your vassal. Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Aram and Israel. So the king of Assyria attacked the Aramean capital of Damascus and led its population away as captives, resettling them in Kir. He also killed King Rezin. The neighboring kingdoms, formerly all one kingdom, are having some major conflict with each other. They're also now, aligning themselves with other kingdoms to help them fight each other off. This kind of stuff is how kingdoms collapse. Or at least one of the ways. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright. So we're looking at 2 Kings chapter 16. Been a bunch of kings cycling through Israel and Judah. More so Israel than Judah. Lots of assassinations and other political turmoil going on there. Judah has been a bit more stable. In fact, I think at one point Israel managed to have 5 different kings over the span of just one king of, ruling over Judah. But, yeah. It also seems like perhaps because of these changes and also kind of Israel and Judah having some conflicts with each other, that has allowed other kingdoms to swoop in and start kind of dealing some damage, for lack of a better way to put it. But I guess we'll see what else happens as we continue. So here we go. 2 Kings chapter 16. Ahaz, son of Jotham, began to rule over Judah in the 17th year of King Pekah's reign in Israel. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. He did not do what was pleasing in the sight of the Lord his God, as his ancestor David had done. Instead, he followed the example of the kings of Israel, even sacrificing his own son in the fire. In this way, he followed the detestable practices of the pagan nations the Lord had driven from the land ahead of the Israelites. He offered sacrifices and burned incense at the pagan shrines, and on the hills, and under every green tree. So yeah, Judah has actually had a fairly decent string of kings who at least themselves worshipped God, even if they didn't necessarily go through all the effort of tearing down all the pagan shrines that were in the land. But now we've got Ahaz, who is not doing that, and is leaning more towards what Israel has done, which is basically not worship and follow God. In fact, I still think to this point Israel has had 0 kings who have truly been dedicated to the Lord. That says Ahaz even sacrificed his own son in the fire. What's the note there? Or even making his son pass through the fire. Okay, now, passing through the fire sounds like it could potentially be one of those, walking over hot coals kind of rituals. But even, I don't know, even that is not a, practice that is prescribed by God. But the broader point is Ahaz is not following God. So, then we'll move on to verse 5. Then King Rezin of Aram and King Pekah of Israel came up to attack Jerusalem. They besieged Ahaz, but could not conquer him. At that time, the king of Edom recovered the town of Elath for Edom. He drove out the people of Judah and sent Edomites to live there, as they do to this day. King Ahaz sent messengers to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria with this message: I am your servant and your vassal. Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Aram and Israel. Then Ahaz took the silver and gold from the temple of the Lord and the palace treasury and sent it as payment to the Assyrian king. So the king of Assyria attacked the Aramean capital of Damascus and led its population away as captives, resettling them in Kir. He also killed King Rezin. Okay, I'll pause there for a sec. So, yeah, King Pekah of Israel was involved in the attack on Jerusalem. So, like, the neighboring kingdoms, formerly all one kingdom, are having some major conflict with each other. And they're also now, like, aligning themselves with other kingdoms to help them fight each other off. And yeah. This kind of stuff is how kingdoms collapse. Or at least one of the ways. Probably one of the more common ways. But anyway. They're basically making themselves weaker all this time, too. Okay, multiple notes to go over here. At that time, the king of Edom, as in Latin Vulgate. Hebrew reads Rezin, king of Aram. Okay. Hebrew reads Aram instead of Edom. Which would honestly kind of make a little bit more sense, because it already mentioned king of Aram, and if he's involved in this attack on Jerusalem, then, you know, him taking some land from Judah would make sense. And that probably says, as in Greek, Persian, Latin, and an alternate reading of the Masoretic text. Other alternate reads Arameans instead of Edomites. So, either King Rezin was doing all this stuff, or it was a different king over Edom, who then, like, kind of took advantage of the situation. Either way, Judah has lost some land in the mix. So then Ahaz sends a message to the king of Assyria. Hebrew might say your son instead of your vassal, but point is, he's humbling himself, putting himself kind of, you know, at a lower rank than the king of Assyria. So he asks for help from Assyria. They come, and now it specifically mentions them attacking the Arameans, not so much Israel. At least not yet. But we'll move along to verse 10 and see what else happens. King Ahaz then went to Damascus to meet with King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. While he was there, he took special note of the altar. Then he sent a model of the altar to Uriah the priest, along with its design in full detail. Uriah followed the king's instructions and built an altar just like it, and it was ready before the king returned from Damascus. When the king returned, he inspected the altar and made offerings on it. He presented a burnt offering and a grain offering. He poured out a liquid offering, and he sprinkled the blood of peace offerings on the altar. So, why would he be copying the altar that's in Damascus? I mean, unless, you know, he just liked the look of it that much. And of course, you know, being that King Ahaz is not one who's really following God, I suppose it's not terribly surprising that he would make a totally different altar and even use it as part of his worship of other gods. And obviously this Uriah here is not to be confused with, Uriah who David basically had killed in battle. Because that guy died many generations before this. Okay. On to verse 14. Then King Ahaz removed the old bronze altar from its place in front of the Lord's temple, between the entrance and the new altar, and placed it on the north side of the new altar. He told Uriah the priest, "Use the new altar for the morning's sacrifices of burnt offering, the evening grain offering, the king's burnt offering and grain offering, and the burnt offerings of all the people, as well as their grain offerings and liquid offerings. Sprinkle the blood from all the burnt offerings and sacrifices on the new altar. The bronze altar will be for my personal use only." Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz commanded him. Now, it's not exactly mentioning Uriah is a priest of the Lord. I think that's sort of implied that that's who he's supposed to be, what role he's supposed to have, or whatever you want to call it. But it's technically not outright said. In any case, Uriah wants this new altar that is designed like the one in Damascus, not, God's design for any kind of altar or anything like that. Not only that, but he, moves the old altar within God's design, or that is made in God's design, I should say, to then put this new altar there, and it says, yeah, use this for pretty much everything except my own personal offerings. Note there, in Hebrew says the great altar instead of the new altar. But the bronze altar was the old one, so either way, it's probably referring to the new one. Okay. On to verse 17. I'll probably read through the rest of the chapter here. Then the king removed the side panels and basins from the portable water carts. He also removed the great bronze basin called the Sea from the backs of the bronze oxen and placed it on the stone pavement. In deference to the king of Assyria, he also removed the canopy that had been constructed inside the palace for use on the Sabbath day, as well as the king's outer entrance to the temple of the Lord. The rest of the events in Ahaz's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Ahaz died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Hezekiah became the next king. Yeah, so making all kinds of changes within the temple, Ahaz is here, and yeah. Now it mentions the one thing specifically being done in deference to the king of Assyria, meaning he basically did it, to stay on Assyria's good side, or to get on their good side. So he's following the king of Assyria more than the Lord, who's supposed to be, his God, or at least the God of his people. This, honestly, out of all the kings of Judah, might be the furthest away from the Lord that they have had a ruler shift thus far. Meaning the Hebrew's uncertain right here where it mentions the Sabbath day. Remove the canopy that had been constructed inside the palace. Okay, that's in the palace, not the temple. But this other stuff about the water carts and the bronze basin called the sea, I'm pretty sure those were in the temple. In any case, taking stuff that was essentially dedicated to the Lord and, to put it bluntly, desecrating it. But, yeah, 2 Kings 16 is kind of on the shorter side, so I don't really have too many other thoughts. I guess that'll do it for this chapter. Alright, so it turns out 2 Kings 16 solely focused on Ahaz as king of Judah, and yeah, he definitely did not follow God. In fact, it directly states that he led the people of Judah, or at least I think it states he led the people of Judah to do the stuff that the kingdom of Israel was doing all this time since they split. So that's not looking good. Also, Israel and Judah are kind of at war with each other, or at least they were for a little bit, but now they're like enlisting the help of outside kingdoms to help deal with each other. It's just, yeah, not really looking good for God's people. But we'll see what happens from here. I mean, it's not like they've been completely obliterated yet or anything like that. So, anyway, stay tuned to see or hear what happens next. But as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel to get updates when I post new videos. Make sure you look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff like that. And of course, leave comments down below with any thoughts or questions you have. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. Whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.